Good evening and welcome to Nigeria Decides 2023 on Trust TV. In less than 2 days, Nigerians will head to the polls to decide who becomes their president for the next 4 years. They will also vote for senators and members of the House of Representatives on the same day. As required by law, the election will be conducted by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. On tonight's edition of Nigeria Decides, we will focus on the readiness of INEC to conduct the 2023 elections. As the saying goes, preparation is key to success. And so we have in our studio today guests who will give us insights into how INEC does its job and why it needs to be so, and particularly in the forthcoming elections. Before we begin, however, we will take a short report on elections in Nigeria. Stay with us.
Yes, I have my PVC here. At least this is what everybody has been longing for years. And by the grace of God, it's just next tomorrow here. So I'm excited. Preparation as individual, I don't really have any. My preparation is I'll make sure I go out and vote on the day of the election. That is just my preparation. So I don't have any personal preparation. I think everywhere needs security because based on the situation of the country, a lot of things, many people are somehow disorganized and unhappy. So there need to be security. There is security need to be tight everywhere, all over the country. So for both from the rural area to the city and everywhere.
Yeah, I have it on ground. I'm not exciting anything. The fact is that, let me give you some instances. Like yesterday, I came back from Kano. I saw how people, they were seriously suffering because of this cashless policy. So I have my voters cards, and definitely tomorrow we are going to vote. And we know who we are voting. You know, it's not something that I can disclose it for you. Everybody has his own opinion. I'm not a security expert. I don't have idea about it. But the way that I'm looking for the area. You know, Abuja, they have a good history, nothing like a violence. If you are talking about the security, they should make it for other places, like other states.
There are no special preparations other than prepare on that day. You go out with your PVC and vote for the candidate of your choice. And then all I advise the federal government to do is to beef up security at the polling booths. We know that with the beavers, what do they call it? Rigging will at least be minimized. We are not really sure, but at least with the experiment made in other states during the last vote in Osho and other places, I think we expect a better election this time around.
Welcome back. We are on Trust TV and we're looking at issues around INEC, where INEC stands in the 2023 election. I have with me the man who has changed the first of elections for the better in Nigeria. He is a former president of ASU, National Union of Academic Staff of Universities, ASU. He's also a former vice chancellor of Bayero University, Kano, where I myself was a student at the same time. I am talking, of course, about Professor Atahiru Jega, former INEC chairman. If there's anyone in Nigeria who knows about the readiness of preparation for elections by INEC, I'm sure he does. You're much welcome, Prof.
Thank you so very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So as I was trying to say, that in our editorial this week, we wrote that elections between 2011 to date and 1999 to 2007, there is a qualitative and quantifiable difference between the two sets of elections by the same INEC. You know, so as someone who was instrumental, you know, in getting INEC on a different path, what are you expecting from this 2023 elections?
Once again, thank you very much, and good evening, viewers. To be honest, just like every citizen of Nigeria, I've been watching things from the side.
Okay.
And I'm ready to exercise my franchise, which I suspended when I was chairman of INEC. I expect the elections to be better, qualitatively better. As you have rightly pointed out, we've come a long way in terms of improving the integrity of our elections.
Yes.
Certainly, things have improved remarkably since 2007. A lot of this improvement can be attributed to not only operational preparedness of INEC as an institution, but also learning from best practices elsewhere and trying to adapt those global best practices in our own context. The most important thing about preparation and conduct of elections is transparency and accountability. You have to be transparent, impartial, to ensure that elections are conducted with credibility. And one of the best ways of bringing about transparency in the electoral process is the incremental use of technology. And we've seen that since 2011, we have moved in every electoral cycle from one improvement to another substantive qualitative improvement. And I can say that from what I know about the operational readiness of INEC going into this election in the next 2 days, it seems adequately well prepared. With regards to technology, the BVAS is certainly remarkably much better than the card reader which we used in 2015.
Thank you.
And the fact that the electoral legal framework, that is the Electoral Act 2022, has very remarkable provisions which not only now recognized the use of technology in elections, but even created opportunity for electronic transmission of results, also opens another opportunity for blocking one of the traditional ways in which our reckless politicians undermine the integrity of elections by diversion of results when they have been counted at the polling units and as they move to the collation centers. So this remarkable improvement, if all goes well, definitely will add tremendous value to the integrity of the 2023 elections.
Thank you.
So we cross our fingers and we hope for the best. We hope and pray. INEC, I believe, is operationally ready. But I must also add that elections with integrity are not the business of INEC alone. All stakeholders have a role to play to ensure that the elections have integrity and therefore are free, fair, and peaceful. And that is the hope and the aspiration of every Nigerian.
Thank you very much, Prof. I'll be coming back to the last point that you made about all stakeholders also have a role to play in ensuring free and fair elections, not just INEC. But maybe we can address one of the issues that are immediate about INEC and its readiness to conduct the elections now, which is over the past 2 weeks, there's been this talk about whether INEC has enough cash given the Naira redesign policy, whether INEC has enough cash to run its elections, whether those cash, much cash that they need has been released on time, and so on. So as someone who has actually done this, there are very few Nigerians now who will understand where the INEC leadership are now better than yourself, because you have actually been there and done it. To what extent would you say that INEC would need cash at this point?
Yes. Well, from my own experience,
Yes.
cash is required because you are deploying. At the time I did the elections in 2015, we deployed 750,000 what we call ad hoc staff. That is youth corps members complemented by students in their penultimate years in secondary, in tertiary institutions. And this category of staff are required to spend the night at what is called a RAC, a registration area center. They all move there by the evening of tomorrow, Friday. They are supposed to spend the night there, and then latest by 6 a.m., if not earlier, they are supposed to be at the polling units where they are going to preside over the conduct of the elections. And they will be there maybe from 6 a.m., maybe until, hopefully, at least until 7 p.m., but in most cases, it may take much longer.
Interesting.
You know, so people who are going to be in the field all day, they need to be able to buy something to eat. So all these people will need cash because they will be posted in areas that do not use electronic transfers. In some areas, there are even no banks. So even if they have money, they can't go to POS or go to banks. And in any case, the work they are doing would not allow them to leave where they are to go and look for money. So you have to provide them with cash. The security agencies are supposed to secure the polling units. And they are supposed to be there for as long as the operational staff in the polling units are there. And usually, INEC provides feeding allowance for them. And this feeding allowance has to be provided in terms of cash. You know, so cash is a necessary requirement for the operational readiness of INEC on election day. Now, obviously, the cashless policy, as many people have said, and I subscribe to that position, is ill-timed.
Okay.
The timing is very, very unfortunate and probably not carefully thought about. Coming into elections to introduce a policy that in many other countries, developed countries with better infrastructure, banking infrastructure than ours, normally when they introduce new currency, they keep providing it until all the old currencies are withdrawn, which takes a year, in some cases probably more. To come and say that you want to do that within a period of 90 days maximum, frankly, I think it's not a carefully thought out policy, and regrettably, we are already seeing the implication of rushing that kind of policy. You know, so I think there are legitimate concerns about whether INEC or indeed citizens will have the cash they require before the election day. Luckily, I say luckily because we've heard from INEC itself.
Yes.
The chairman of INEC has said that they had made necessary contacts with CBN, and they have been reassured that they will get all the resources that they require to deploy for the elections, which is very good news.
Yes.
And we can only hope and pray that it turns out to be so. So if chairman of INEC says that they have been given reassurances, I think we can be reassured that if he had any concerns, he would voice it.
For those following the news, or those of us in the news, it was until yesterday that, you know, the news came that the cash has finally reached INEC from the CBN. So That's just 3 days, officially like 3-4 days before the election. Can that have an impact given the kinds of places you mentioned earlier where INEC would deploy staff and would need cash?
Yes, I think it's 3 days is sufficient time because the resources are decentralized.
Okay.
I do not expect that everything will come to INEC headquarters and then from there they start distributing. My guess, which is a rational, reasonable guess, is that the CBN will provide these resources as INEC directs in all the states.
Interesting.
And if the state offices get these resources yesterday or even today, they may be able to distribute it appropriately. Regrettably, if they had got this money earlier, they probably would have paid it through the accounts of the staff. But as everybody knows, giving people now money through the accounts will even create more challenges because people can't go to bank or to ATM to withdraw resources. So if they are provided cash, and the states got this cash yesterday or even today, I feel that they should be able, it's an additional burden while they are distributing election materials to also be distributing cash, to ad hoc staff, but I'm sure they will be able to manage it well. The most important thing is that before the ad hoc staff and the security officials deploy to the polling units Saturday morning, they should have some money in their pockets to be able to buy things for lunch or snack for the long period that they are going to be there for the elections.
Thank you, Prof. So what about this beavers issue? To a lot of Nigerians, it's still like big grammar. Beavers, because this is the first time it will be used in a general election, even though INEC conducted a mock pilot study deployment of beavers recently. So exactly what is it meant to improve, and to what extent is it reliable based on the pilot studies that have been conducted recently?
Okay, thank you so very much. If you recall, in 2011, INEC did biometric registration where it captured fingerprints of all people who presented themselves and got registered. And the INEC issued what it called a temporary voter's card for the purpose of the 2011 general elections. So what that did was to ensure that, first of all, there is a database, central database, and the segmented databases in each state of the Federation and the FCT, where the registration records of all registered voters are kept. So now, after the 2011 elections, before the 2015 general elections, INEC now issued those who have registered what it called the permanent voters card.
Okay.
And the permanent voters cards contains all the records of registration of a voter.
Interesting.
It has the photograph of the voter, it has the fingerprints of the voter, all on a chip, which is a contactless chip contained in the card
Inside
that is
card.
given to a voter.
Okay.
So with that kind of information, INEC said, look, we can improve the integrity of election by using a card reader to read the details of every voter who presents himself or herself at the polling unit.
Okay.
So that is what is called verification
Okay.
and authentication. So anybody who presents a card, a voter's card at the polling unit, if it does not belong to him, can easily be identified as not being the holder of the card. Because the card reader can only read the fingerprints and compare the fingerprints of the person with the fingerprints on the card. Okay, so that was what was done in 2015. So card reader did authentication and verification of a voter who presents himself or herself at the polling unit.
Okay.
But the verification was only for fingerprints.
Okay.
And you know the numerous challenges INEC had with the issue of verification with fingerprints. So fingerprints, sometimes you try either because of the fingers. If they are women and they are wearing henna or lalle, it's a serious problem. If they are mechanics, it's a serious problem. If they are farmers, the same thing. So the beavers now reads not only the fingerprints, but also the photographs, the facial features of the person who presents a voter's card. So they will be able to compare the facial features as well as the fingerprints. So if fingerprints do not work, the face will work. So it increased almost several fold the possibility that if you are a genuine card holder, if you present yourself, you will be either verified and or authenticated. You know, so that's a remarkable improvement, you know, because first of all, you eliminate the challenges, the time you waste when people's fingerprints cannot be captured. Secondly, you make it easier if fingerprints cannot be captured very, very quickly. The facial features can be verified and authenticated. You know, so that's why the BVAS is called biometric verification and authentication system. So that's why the acronym is BVAS. You know, so it's a remarkable improvement over what we have done in 2015.
Thank you.
And from all the piloting that they have done, it seems to be working well. But of course, training and retraining of the people who are deployed in the field is very, very crucial.
Okay.
So we can only hope that those whom INEC have trained, adequately trained to be able to operate this equipment seamlessly. But the BVAS has also additional features.
Okay.
Because now the BVAS is also able to send the records of verified voters for each polling unit.
Interesting.
Directly to the database of INEC. You know, so if there is any mago-mago, obviously you can always go back to the database and see. And the Electoral Act now is very clear. You know, if there is a discrepancy between the registration figures on the BVAS and the manual records, you rely on the electronic records of the BVAS.
Thank you.
So all these are tremendous, remarkable improvements which technology allows and which INEC is deploying, hopefully for the better in terms of the integrity of our electoral process.
Thank you, Prof. The issue of verification that you mentioned now, particularly of voters, you know, of the number of people in particular polling units as against those who actually vote, you know, and so on, raises one of the issues that many people have been talking about, at least on the sidelines of these issues, that what if the database is hacked by people? What if people try to hack the database, either of INEC, you know, somewhere to get their way? And as you remember, the issue of database was one of the central questions in the Supreme Court case in the 2019 presidential election. You know, so does INEC have database? Is it capable of being hacked? What concerns or fears should Nigerians have regarding, you know, the electronic integrity of INEC data during this election?
Yeah, you see, in this modern age, nobody can give you 100% assurance that a database cannot be hacked, unless if the database is not online. You know, in 2015, when we did the elections, our database was not online. You know, it's what you call standalone databases. You know, but now, particularly because there is the issue of transmission of result,
Yes.
it has to be online. You know, so, but all over the world, databases are used and they are relatively secure to be used. Why? Because people deploy effective cyber security.
Okay.
And the INEC has said consistently that knowing the political terrain,
Yes.
you know, they have also got the best cyber security for the databases that they have.
Okay.
And we have to trust them, you know, that they have done their best. It doesn't mean it will be 100% secure, you know, but I know that whoever uses a database also uses what is called security alternatives, you know, which virtually nobody knows, you know, but where you duplicate the data and keep it just in case.
Yes.
Either your own main database is hacked or is even demobilized or immobilized by hackers. You know, so I will expect that INEC has taken adequate measures. First of all, to ensure that it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to hack their databases. And in case a database is hacked, there is an alternative database which has kept
The same record.
the same record. You know, because virtually everybody that uses a database in this modern age also does that. You have to secure your data, and there are many ways to secure your data, which minimize the risk. It does not eliminate it completely, but it can make the risk statistically insignificant.
Thank you very much, Prof.
Yes.
Thank you for staying with us, our viewers. We have in the studio Professor Atairu Jega, who, as you know, was former INEC chairman. We'll be taking a short break. When we return, we'll continue with this interview on where INEC stands on the 2023 elections. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Nigeria Decides 2023, coming to you from Trust TV in Abuja here. Next, we're bringing you a sample of people's expectations from INEC, the police, and other actors in this election. This you can do by calling the phone number on the screen. Please lower the volume of your TV set, and when your call comes through, give us your name, where you're coming from, and then ask your question or make a contribution. Stay with us. Okay, so Prof, before we take any calls, you know, because on this program we allow people to join in, and we know that a lot of people will be keen to even ask you a question as we speak. So one of the areas where INEC perennially has issues when it comes to elections is issues of the time between accreditation and the voting proper, you know, deployment of INEC materials, you know, and so on. So sometimes the actual voting doesn't start until maybe 12 p.m., 2 p.m., and so on in many parts of the country. To what extent do you expect, or are you thinking that things would be the same or different in this election?
Yes, certainly things are going to be different in this election because since 2015, INEC has tried to not separate the period of accreditation with voting.
Okay.
You know, so as you come, you are accredited and you vote.
Okay.
And there is only a time for commencement and the time of ending the voting. You know, so I think the challenge we had between 2011 and 2015, when we had a fixed time of accreditation, which is between 8 and 12,
yes,
and then voting starts
after 12.
Normally we say around 12:30.
Yes.
You know, people will join the queue by 12, and then voting starts. You know, it's no longer necessary to do that because we've got a situation both especially now with the beavers, that the beavers contains the records of all registered voters in a particular polling unit. So it is no longer possible for somebody to go to a polling unit which is not his, which is not where he or she has registered to be able to vote. You know, and the reason why in the past we used that period of accreditation was to stop people from moving around, because in the past, up until 2007, until we started that fixed accreditation period, fixed voting period in 2011, you know, our politicians, because they are very reckless, first of all, they will buy voters' cards and they will give it to some other people who are not the bona fide owners of the voters' cards to be moving from one polling unit to another voting. You know, so when we started improving the process, we also said, look, dead people, for example, cannot vote.
Absolutely.
People cannot go and buy the voters' cards of
those who
are dead and give it to some other people for them to go and vote. So, but by 2019, in fact, after 2015, leading to 2019, it already became clear to INEC that the integrity of the register and the use of the card reader has eliminated the possibility of people moving from one place to another to vote.
Interesting.
And now, in particular, when in the beavers you have the records of only people
in that unit,
in that unit,
yes.
So it's no longer necessary to say that you have to all be there at one time and to vote at the same time. So now people can go between the designated period INEC says is the starting period of the election to the designated period when they say voting is closed nationwide. And anybody can go within that period to cast his or her vote. But he or she needs to be accredited, of course, using the beavers.
Thank you. But all of this will still depend on how soon the polling booths, the polling units themselves are open.
Yes.
How soon INEC can get materials to them. And we're having this fuel scarcity crunch and all this. So how are you looking, how does that look, you know, presently in practical terms as someone who has done it before?
Yes, there is no doubt that deployment of logistics for elections is a Herculean task, particularly in a country like Nigeria, where the public transportation system does not work very, very effectively, where the terrain, the country is so large, and you have to move people over long distances, over different terrain. You know, obviously there are a lot of challenges. You know, so logistics have been quite challenging. Now, beginning from 2015, INEC started trying to get partnership and cooperation, particularly with the road transport workers unions, you know, because you have to use vehicles to transport personnel and materials to the polling units and to also retrieve this. You know, in the past, when INEC didn't have that collaboration, you know, some of the local heavyweight politicians are also the transporters. They own the vehicles, all the what do you call it? All the ship, the canoes.
Yes.
So there were experiences in the past where you will make individual arrangement with a driver, you know, and the local owner of the vehicle or the vehicles will now interfere with the transportation of the materials.
Interesting.
So INEC now started a partnership with the Transport Workers Union, so that, and you know, it's one of the strongest unions in this country. So their intervention can help smoothen things. And I understand that in addition to working and partnering with the Transport Workers Union, this time around, INEC also signs individual contracts with the drivers, which means there are obligations when you sign a contract. There are legal penalties if you default. So the hope is that we will see remarkable improvements with regards to logistics.
Yes.
Also, given the fact that both the security personnel and the drivers and the ad hoc staff are supposed to spend the night at a particular location, and then it is from there that very early in the morning they will be transported to their various polling units, suggests that hopefully things may be better this time around. But to be honest, there are so many imponderables, if one can put it that way. One can only hope that all the arrangements that INEC has made will work out perfectly, so that there are no delays in commencement, because any delay in commencement is also bound to create delays
in the
closure or finishing.
Thank you very much. So but the finishing is where the election is, because it is where Nigerians will get to know who wins a particular seat or who loses a particular seat, because losing is part of the process. But even before then, the security of the conduct of the elections itself, the process, the security of the process, can be very important, particularly now that you have insecurity everywhere in the southeast, and Nigerians have had quite a lot of challenges with police, with military during elections before. So to what extent can you say that people can be reassured, even though you are not the one on seat, but you can draw from experience and also your observation of current events? To what extent can you say security will be a challenge or not?
Yes, when we started this conversation, I said that having free, fair, credible elections is not the business of INEC.
Yes.
No matter how well INEC does, if the other partners do not do their job well, there may still be challenges with the integrity of the elections. And there is no doubt that the security agencies are the key partners in terms of ensuring that the environment under which elections are conducted are peaceful, are non-violent, and are devoid of rancor and conflicts. Now, I must say that because you asked about my observation and my own experiences, and I'm not speaking for INEC on these matters, I know that since 2011, there has been a remarkable improvement in the conduct and performance of the security agencies in general with regards to elections. There are a few cases since then where people were not happy either with the response of the military or the police and so on. But I think in general, one can say that there has been remarkable improvements. Why do I say so?
Yes.
Before 2011, in particular 2003 and 2007 elections, there are recorded cases and evidence where officers of the security agencies were the ones protecting people who are tampering and putting votes in ballot boxes for candidates, which means they have become unprofessional, they have become compromised and partisan, and they have also become very corrupt, because mostly they do this because they are paid or they are induced. Okay. But since 2011, to be honest, that kind of reckless behavior by security agencies has been checked. Okay. And it has been checked, I think, to a large extent because INEC introduced what it called a consultative committee, interagency consultative committee on election security, ICSES, where both at the national level and at the state level, and the expectation is that even at the local level, all heads of security agencies with the head of INEC at those levels would meet periodically to discuss preparations and deployment of security for the purposes of election. And for example, at the national level, ICSES is co-chaired by INEC and the National Security Advisor.
Wow.
And all the heads of security agencies, including paramilitary agencies, participate in those meetings. At the state level is the Commissioner of Police with the Resident Electoral Commissioner and all heads of other security agencies like the Divisional Commander and so on, who constitute that. And so there has been remarkable improvement in terms of synergy in the work of these security agencies. Police is a lead agency, but every agency knows the kind of complementary role it provides. I think the major challenge...
Okay, good.
Yeah, the major challenge, for example, INEC expects that in every polling unit there should be at least 3 unarmed security personnel.
Okay.
Ideally, it should be the police, but we know that the police is generally understaffed, and it has been very, very difficult for the police to achieve that level of deployment. So normally, you will find it's a combination. You know, maybe 2 policemen, 1 customs, or 1 policeman, 1 custom, 1 immigration, or a combination. So that is the kind of way that they are able to achieve. Even at that, sometimes it's very, very difficult to ensure that every polling unit you have these 3 unarmed policemen. And their responsibility at the polling unit is to help assist the presiding officer in maintaining peace and order and preventing violence, or even to help make arrests if they become necessary. They are unarmed, you know, for, of course, obvious reasons, but they are supposed to be in constant contact with the mobile police who are patrolling not too far away from the polling unit, so that if it becomes necessary, then they can go to help bring peace.
The mobile police are armed.
Exactly.
I presume. Okay.
Yes, the mobile police, of course, are armed. Even the army are supposed to be there somewhere, not seen, but operationally ready.
Mobile, yes.
In case the police have challenges and they require the support of the army, then the army would be ready to come and provide that support. So actually the ICSES has defined the role and responsibility of every security agency. You know, of course there are, once in a while there are either lack of complementarity or lack of proper coordination, but in general, compared to what has happened in the past, we've seen remarkable improvements. So I can only hope, and I think that's what all Nigerians are hoping, that in 2023, in the next 2 days, we will see even greater professionalism, non-partisanship, and eschewing of corrupt tendencies as the security engage with the elections. Now, I have heard yesterday the EFCC chairman was on a media chat. You know, and he gave assurances that they are also fully prepared to deploy and to make sure that our reckless politicians, if they try to use money to buy votes, that they are ready to address the situation. So it seems that going into this election, and we really hope and believe that there will be that coordination and complementarity and working together and synergy.
Thank you, Prof.
In order to secure the electoral process.
Thank you. Everyone who was familiar or who is familiar with the 2015 election will be familiar with the Orubebe movement. or what I can call the Orubebe movement. Now, that's when the votes are being counted, or when a winner is to be declared. Historically, this is the moment in which everything can change in Nigerian elections. And people have these feelings still that when votes are being collated or being grouped at INEC headquarters, that's where the figures go missing. That's where certain things, the votes actually change, winners become losers, and so on. Should Nigerians have any fears about that in this election?
Well, to be honest, I think there is no cause for fear, at least from what we hear INEC say, from what the chairman of INEC has consistently said, and from even the mere fact that now there will be electronic transmission of results, which are, if it works very well, very, very unlikely to be tampered with. And even if the manual paper trail has been tampered with, the electronic transmission will be served as a check in terms of identifying those challenges. So my hope and my prayer is that things will be better this time around. However, I must say this, and I have said it consistently, and I'm saying it not just as a former chairman of INEC, but also as a political scientist who has studied Nigerian politics, Nigerian electoral system, and who teaches it. To be honest, if there is any category of stakeholders in the Nigerian electoral process whose attitude and mindset and mentality has not remarkably changed since 1999, I regret to say is the political class.
Interesting.
The mindset with which they have engaged with elections has been consistent. And it has been reckless, it has been do or die, it has been win using hook or what do they call it, by hook or by crook, and their mindset is to win elections every which way. And that is why, for example, while we have seen improvements at the level of INEC by using technology, we have, because in the past, until 2007, all the reckless political class need to do is to buy off an INEC official. So they don't care about mobilizing people to come out and vote. They buy an election official who will just write the result, and declare them, and then they go to tribunal and they try to also buy their way off there. Now it is becoming increasingly difficult. There are still a few, very few bad eggs that you can still buy in INEC, but invariably, there is nothing they can do for you if the votes are not cast in your favor. If they declare false results, it's very easy now to know, and many of them are now being prosecuted, so they are very, very careful to do that. So the politicians now have realized, that buying an INEC official is useless. So buying a security official is also useless in terms of being declared the winner. In 2019, they started putting guns on the heads of returning officers. I don't know whether you are aware, in Imo State, 2 senators went to Senate by forcefully getting the returning officers to declare results in their favor.
At the point of a gun?
At least one of them on the point of a gun. INEC has said this consistently, it's all over, it's reported. And unfortunately, this guy got his way through the tribunal again, and as we speak, he is a serving senator. Now it's increasingly difficult with the electronic transmission of results, with the use of the beavers. So what have they been doing? as the integrity of the elections improve, they now go and try to buy the votes directly. And they do it recklessly. They will deploy people with bags of money, to buy voters, so that they now realize that voters have to cast votes for them. So my hope is that the security agencies like the EFCC and the ICPC, together with the police, will now also try to prevent that tendency that we see. So if I have any fear with regards to the 2023 election, frankly, it is the recklessness and the attitude and the disposition of many of our political class, whether as candidates or as leaders of political parties, who just want to win election recklessly by hook or by crook.
Thank you very much, Prof. It's been wonderful having you on today's show. Unfortunately, every program must come to an end. And this is where we come to an end as well. The federal government, INEC, and Nigerians have all worked for the 2023 general elections, and the world is watching. The ball is now in the court of all Nigerians to turn out to vote and make their voices heard. Remember, those who don't vote lose the right to complain. With that charge, we call it a day on this episode of Nigeria Decides 2023. Keep a date with us tomorrow, same time, same station. I remain your host, Suleiman Suleiman. Good night.